Well, if you've ever been on a trip and you're looking forward to it because you haven't fished there in a long time, and all you do is hear the rustling of the palms and watching the clouds go by at 100 miles an hour, well, it was just like that. I mean, absolutely a bad idea to go fishing. But you drive 3 hours that morning, you get there and the guide says, I think we can still do it. You go. So the winter, I'm gonna say the late fall and winter of 2020 and early 2021 has probably been one of the coolest or coldest winters we've had since like 2010, 2011. And that's basically because these fronts are so successive and so close together that you might get 1, maybe 2 days where the wind is down under 10 miles an hour, and the rest of the time, it's howling like a hurricane.
I doubt we'll see more than 2 foot of depth today. You know, maybe once the tide completely drops out and we hit some channels, but.
Looks like that wind is really venturing through that little cut there. There's a blowout right there, dude.
And it seems only fitting that you'd be sitting on the leeward side of this wind-driven current here.
Just waiting for something.
So this year is the first time that we're back inside of an El Nino cycle, which is about every 10 years we tend to have a very cold winter. This year is no exception. From basically starting around Thanksgiving until now, we have had relentless cold fronts that come down. When these happen, you know, we have due northwest winds, which really just drives the water out. So we tend to get the lowest low tides of the year. It really makes fishing somewhat tricky, but at the same time, it really draws the fish out from inland creeks and bayous and stuff and concentrates them in heavy numbers.
Captain Codty Pierce came highly recommended from the exec level there at Hells Bay Boat Works. They knew I was looking for a professional guide to fish with down in Charlotte Harbor, and I needed someone that's on the water a lot. And they just said, hey, you need to give Captain Codty Pierce a shot. He's a young guide that is very determined. And I learned that in the first 2 hours, because anyone that says, hey, this is a good idea to go fishing is pretty damn determined. There he is. There he is. I mean, he stopped it, Cody.
He did.
He stopped it.
Great job, pal.
Full
nice
grown.
Fish, too.
Full grown.
Well, it just goes to show you that you don't know until you go.
That's right. These are the days where you can really get them, too. Mm-hmm. And again, it was your direction about taking the cast right down the slick tide line.
Nice fish here.
It is a good looking fish. Definitely an oversized fish.
Absolutely. You know, and that paddle tail on a jig head, like you say, is it's bread and butter.
It's simple, and in conditions like today, I wanted to throw some of my hard baits, and hopefully we'll get in a spot in a creek where I can, but I mean,
and it really matters, having that, you know, jig head and the soft plastic will get the job done.
But when I have to fish hard like this and throw into wind, Cody, you got to throw into the wind, you got to have something like this.
You know, and there can't be a more picturesque, perfect time, you know, for the power pole. This is when you absolutely need it. Days like today, it proves its worth tenfold.
You know, this is an old color. It's avocado red flake, kind of a bass color, but look at that.
Nice specimen. Malachet gold, baby.
That's right. The old red, white, and blue. Nice fish. Cody, I learned after probably the first 3 hours, I probably learned more about Charlotte Harbor, its history, its ecosystem, and fauna, fish, bird life. He's not only an eco tour guide, but he's a rock solid fishing guide.
I think I see him at 11 o'clock. He slid a little bit.
We saw enough of them moving through those little salt and pepper holes along that edge.
You did. You executed a perfect cast there and fed him. It was nice.
My perfect cast was 10,000 casts. Sometimes that's what it takes.
The proof is in the pudding.
You steady up there, Cody?
I'm all right.
Putting my felt 175 pounds on the side here.
I'll try to counter that with my 1/8 of a ton.
Little trout eye jig head. Basically the old motor oil color with a little gold flake in it. Pretty.
When I fish Charlotte Harbor, and I've been fishing Charlotte Harbor actually since the mid to late 80s, so that's a long time. And it's always been known as one of the better snook fisheries and tarpon fisheries on the west coast of Florida. But because I was involved in all those professional redfish tours back in the day that were on ESPN and the Outdoor Life Network, it was quite the venue for catching redfish. And that is a resilient fish that can withstand big weather swings.
Here's a tailor right here. Is that a tailor or is that just grass? That's just grass.
Nope, it was a tailor. See him waking before you. Good eye, CA.
Got him.
Yes, CA.
Ooh.
Yes, sir. Now that was a sight fish, redfish.
That is how you do it.
Yes, sir. That was textbook perfect.
Slide it up, let it be his idea.
That is the correct saying. Let it be his idea.
Let it be his idea. And you know, Cody, that's where a casting setup, short rod, really is a huge advantage and strength. Because that would have been tough if you're slinging a 7.5 foot spinning rod. That would have been tough. He is digging.
That's what I love about wintertime red fishing. These fish just have
they're
unbelievable.
Yeah, you're right, because you get into those high temperatures in the summer when there's so many reds around, but then they don't fight very hard. You get one run, they're done.
Yep.
It's amazing how great your fishery is here. It's still one of the best fisheries in the state. And in lieu of all the issues.
Yes. That just goes to show you why it's so important that we try to preserve and to continue to do the right thing, because it is worth saving.
Yeah.
You know?
Come on in here, Mr. Rusty.
Nicely done, CA. And what a slob of a slot fish.
All right, I'm not gonna put my fingers in his gills. I'm just under that plate right there. Just need to be able to get this out of his tongue.
Avocado red glitter.
What a gorgeous fish. I mean, that is gorgeous. Unbelievable.
Perfect spots, a little bit of blue. You know, he's still showing signs of maturity.
Fins all up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talked to Cody on the phone, we had all these ideas about how we were gonna teach people how to fish in Charlotte Harbor. We're gonna do this cool stuff where we're gonna throw Paul Browns for big trout, and then we were gonna throw Ned rigs to sight fish for reds, and none, I mean none of that crap happened. Nothing, zero. The only 1-2 punch that I could drive with a casting rod into the wind was going to be a weight forward jig with a 3-inch paddle tail, because I wanted to throw something that had some thump, and then a mirrodine that you can cheat the wind with a little bit, and you can make it work erratically so that when you got into some deeper zones or you had a little bit of low light, that 1-2 punch between the mirrodine and the 3-inch paddle tail, that was all we really had. There was nothing else I could come up with where I could cheat the wind and still count on catching fish and covering water. Here's a fish laid up right here. I'll get up ahead of him.
Nice trout. Good job, CA. Woo! Almost enough. There's a nice red up there on shore too. That's just waiting for you to get this one off.
You just gotta bomb them.
Yes, you do.
The thing about trout is we all think that trout live out in depths of 4 and 6 feet of water over grass. Well, some of the larger trout, the really big trout, they'll actually get close to the bank, and they like to harbor up next to oyster bars and little runouts off a creek and mangrove shorelines. That's where the bigger trout are. Though the tough part about that is those trout are super, super wary and tough to catch. So every once in a while, we would work a shoreline for a period of time, maybe pick up a red, maybe pick up a trout, but I'd always want to be, let's just move off the bank just a little bit and let me cast downwind, clear the spool, and maybe we can find some school trout to pad some numbers. But even that was tough.
Decent trout too. Whoa. That's a good one, dude.
That is a good one.
That is a good one. That's good. That's a gator.
Nice job.
I mean, he dog boned it. Went back to the mirrodine, and that was the trick.
Looking for that reaction bite.
Yeah.
You called it. You couldn't have called it any better.
Nice looking fish too, bud. This color is actually a color I use for snook a lot, but we call it Elvis's bat. Wow, that is a nice fish.
He's proved himself this afternoon.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, I like fishing out here off the bank a little bit. Touching his gills. That is a beautiful fish. Nice trout. What you expect to see in Charlotte Harbor. We'll put him back in the drink. Then we'll do this again. You got some fish here, dude. You got some fish here. I say we keep that 40, 50 yard edge, 2 foot of water.
I agree.
And that little
great call on your part.
Yeah, I just felt like the reaction bite was going to be better than sometimes you just can't fight it.
All right, guys, let's talk about this 1-2 punch with Captain Codty. The two rod setups that I used are similar but dissimilar. And what I mean by that is they're both Terramar XX Shimanos, but one's 7-foot and one's 6'9". Now they're both medium action rods, so you're thinking, well, that's basically the same action, but they're not. The one with the jig that has the heavier hook and the bigger hook gap where you're gonna have to really stab them, well, the tip on that rod is a little faster. The tip on the 7-foot rod is gonna be a little slower, so it gives a little bit more. Why? Because we're throwing the Mirrodine on that rod, and it's got these smaller size Ford treble hooks. So to have a more forgiving or softer tip on the rod, it suits the Mirrodine presentation a lot better, especially on the hook sets and fighting the fish where you don't straighten them out. When you're fighting them on the jig where you've got a lot more power, this rod does not bend nearly as much, even though they're both medium action rods. Now, the two plugs or jigs that I use for the 1-2 punch, one is an old standby favorite of mine. This is Avocado. It's basically a watermelon colored jig with red flake. This is an amazing color setup for Southwest and West Central Florida. It does a really good job. With the Mirrodine itself, I have a little bit shorter leader. I only have 2 foot of leader, and I do that because I'm working this thing quickly for a reaction bite. So the fish is typically behind it. All he sees is the back of the bait. So this particular color, which is Elvis's back, is a color that you would see from a Mahara or any of the small pinfish that live in the backcountry there in Southwest Florida. Both these reels are spooled up with 20-pound Power Pro. I've got moss green color on one rod, blue on the other, and that's just so that I can tell the difference what rod's down there, because I usually have this blue one is one of my favorite reels. It's the Shimano Corrado 200XG, and it's got a little bit wider spool and it's got a little bit bigger power handle. This other reel with the moss green on it is the Kronar. This is the Shimano Kronar. This is the 150XG. It's a sophisticated reel that really unloads well, but on this soft rod, the braking system on it is a little bit better, I feel, than the one that's on the 200XG. So I can feather this because this is a lot slower rod, being 7 foot long versus the 6'9". And I know that's a lot of information to throw at you guys for 2 simple baits that was catching fish today, but that's how you do it. Well, as you can imagine, the only play that we had was to fish lee shorelines. And the wind is blowing so hard, it comes over the trees and then squeezes down, and you're still driving casts directly into the wind, and it was cutting my distance down by 1/3 at least.
There he is. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Good little 1-2 punch right there, man.
1-2 punch.
1-2 punch. That's a nice fish.
Nice. Well, we made it to the hard body plastics after all.
I think this is the one that's going to send us back, bub. That one's going to send us home. Woo! Come on now.
Hot diggity dog.
That's a good one.
Only the best for the best.
Yeah, that's a. This guy here, he's got a bag of tricks. He's got a bag of tricks, man.
Hey.
I mean that.
Come on, buddy. We only want to make you famous.
Well, you saw when I picked this rod out from underneath the gunnel, I said, this is my buggy whip.
Texas buggy whip.
My Texas buggy whip.
Woo!
What an awesome day of fishing.
Day.
Cody, you showed me some places in Matlacha that I hadn't fished.
It was my pleasure, CA.
And for as crappy as the day has been with the weather, we have still persevered.
Hard work never will fail you.
You know, I set the drag on these things at the shop, and I set it so low, and I basically use my thumb as added drag. But I think I finally wore this guy down.
It's a beautiful specimen.
I just tied that mangrove honey on to
Now
try.
that you got a handle on him, I'm going to power pull down.
He's under control. What a great day of fishing.
It has been.
I mean, Charlotte Harbor, for all the things that it has been faced with and challenged with since 2018, It's still one hell of a fishery.
It truly is.
One hell of a fishery.
We were very lucky to call this place home.
All right. See if the old man can get down here and get this last one off before we head back to the tarpon lodge and get cleaned up for dinner. What do you say?
Sounds like a plan.
Captain Codty. Oh man, he absolutely.
He wanted it.
He wanted it like you and I want a cheeseburger right now.
I can't not only thank the Tarpon Lodge for their great hospitality. We had an unbelievable dinner and breakfast there. But Captain Codty Pierce, you worked your tail off, because there would be a lot of guides that would have definitely thrown the white towel into the ring on that shoot. That was truly fishing impossible. And if you want to fish with a guide that makes things happen, Captain Codty Pierce will definitely be your guide in Southwest Florida.